My wig was snatched. I was sucked in so fast. I didn't even know what happened. I just blacked out. One of those books that you can just turn your brain off, but you're also like, you're blushing. You know what I mean? Perfect recipe to get out of a book slump. Something slutty, something easy to read, and something that's gonna grab your attention right away. That's gonna be smut. That's gonna be smut, yeah! Hi besties! Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, my name is Lauren. I'm a lover of all things books, home, and beauty. By the way, let me preface. If you hear, I am not farting. That is my chair. I get so irritated because I'm like, this chair squeaks. My house was built in the 50s, so she's a little old girl. We love her. She's unique. She has character, but she squeaks. The foundation of this house is a little squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. So I moved my chair today. If you can't tell, this is a new background. New background, who's this? I've got a little cozy vibe on the TV, and it's daytime, so I didn't light the candles for you guys, but I was like, you know what? I want to switch up my little filming situation. So yeah, we're in a new little angle of the book room. I didn't know my chair was gonna squeak. So she's squeaking a little bit. So if you hear that little squeak, that is what it is. But anyway, back to what I was saying, ADHD Lauren, let's get it together. In today's video, I am going to be giving you guys 10 of my favorite books and my highest recommended books that I tell people when they ask me, how do I get out of this book slump? And there's gonna be a common theme here. There's gonna be a common theme. And you know what that common theme is gonna be? That's gonna be smut. That's gonna be smut, yeah! It's gonna be smut, it really is. Because you know what, let's be real. What do you need? What is the perfect recipe to get out of a book slump? Something slutty, something easy to read, and something that's gonna grab your attention right away, okay? For me personally, I know everybody's different, but for me personally, what is going to get me out of that slump is something that I can turn my brain off a little bit to. Because let's face it, if you're in a slump, whether it's because you just finished like one of your best reads, one of your most favorite reads, or you're in a slump because nothing's really grabbing your attention, I feel like this is the easiest way to rip you out of that just dull phase. And so we're gonna do that with a little spice, okay? So spicy books are not for you. These recs will probably not be for you, bestie, and that is totally fine. Actually, I need to put my thinking cap on and I need to come up with some things that, find some other books that are easy to digest, easy to read, that maybe are not so heavy on the smut for my girls who don't really love smut, because there's nothing wrong with not liking smut, just like there is nothing wrong with reading smut. Yes, we're inclusive here. We include everybody. If you guys want to know what my top 10 books are that I would recommend to you for getting out of a book slump, then keep on watching. First book that will get you out of your book slump is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. Yeah! And also, by the way, a lot of these books are gonna be like part of a series. This one right here, Miss Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, she's a standalone. She's not that long. The tropes are gonna be forbidden love, ex-boyfriend's dad, spicy, and there's an age gap. I don't know how big the age gap is, but the age gap's in this one, okay? And there is something about an ex-boyfriend's dad trope that's just gonna give it to me every freaking time. Like, I don't know what it is. It's the forbidden aspect of it, but like, yeah, it's delicious. Yeah, I'm eating it up every single time, and it's gonna get you out of that book slump. Literally, Birthday Girl was the first like forbidden love kind of vibe book that I read, and it was also my first Penelope Douglas book. And Penelope Douglas, if you guys know, she is one of my favorite freaking authors. This book just grabbed my attention because, first of all, ex-boyfriend's dad, like, come on now. I've talked about this book before, I want to say, and I think it was reading 1-star reviews of my favorite books, and I freaking love this book. This is one of those books that, like, when you read, it'll have you questioning your morals a little bit. But what I love about the way Penelope Douglas puts her spin on this book is, like, the ex-boyfriend is kind of a little butthole, so you don't really feel super bad for him. And I really, really love that because I recently just read a dupe, and I talked about this in my reading wrap-up. I've been trying to find like a birthday girl dupe, and I do have one, and I will be talking about it later on in this video, and it is ex-boyfriend's dad, but he's a cowboy. Just wait, just hold, it's coming. But anyway, this one is like my top forbidden love trope kind of book because, like I said, Penelope Douglas does an amazing job at not making you feel too bad. You can still enjoy like the forbidden aspect of it, but like it's realistic in a sense. Do you know what I mean? And also I really love that our main characters are just so relatable and just easy Like, it feels very real world to me. They're very normal, and I just really, really freaking love it. Let me set the scene for you guys. So Jordan, our FMC, I believe she's 18 or 19, I can't remember, but she has a really, really bad home life, and she has to work all the time, take care of herself. Like, she just doesn't really have a great life going on. So her and her boyfriend end up needing a place to live, and so they move in with his dad. And keep in mind, our girl Jordan, she is a chronic moviegoer. She loves going to the movies, and so she meets this mysterious guy before they move in with this dad, right? And she just kind of like hits it off with him because she goes and sees movies by herself, and this guy was seeing a movie by himself. And so she kind of like hits it off with him. Nothing happens. And then later on, whenever she meets her boyfriend's dad, who they have to move in with because her and her boyfriend are kind of struggling financially, it turns out to be the mystery guy from the movies. Okay. So they keep it kind of like a secret, and it's very much forced proximity. It's very much forbidden love, and she is living with the boyfriend's dad. They're living there, but like, he's a really crappy boyfriend, so their relationship is kind of on the rocks. But basically all you need to know is it's forced proximity, it's forbidden love, and you guys know I'm not good at breaking down a plot of the book, but just trust me on this one. The tension, the build-up, the complexity of both characters, and just how they come together and make each other better. I just love it so much, and it will always forever be one of my favorite forbidden loves. And like I said, it's one of those where it's like, oh my god, it's so forbidden, like, ooh, forbidden fruit type of vibe, but also you don't beat yourself up because it is realistic in a sense. And yeah, I just really, really love it, and I couldn't put the freaking book down. Yeah, this book is everything and more. I cannot wait to reread this book, and like I said, it is my favorite forbidden romance to date. I have a bunch of other ones in here, a bunch of books that I'm going to talk about, but I would say my #1 rec for getting out of a book slump is going to be Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. The next book for getting out of a book slump, this is going to be part of a series, so bear with me, but all of these books can be read as standalones. It's going to be God of Malice by Rina Kent. This is the first book in the Legacy of God series. You do not have to read all of the books in the series. Rina Kent did say you can read them as standalones, even though I highly recommend, honestly, this entire series for getting out of a book slump, because the reason I even picked up God of Malice is because I was in a freaking book slump. So I picked up God of Malice. It was my first Rina Kent book, and I was like, I don't really know what to expect. This one's been on my shelf for a while. We'll just see what's going on. And if you've read God of Malice, you know by the first chapter, some shock factors happen. So I will say, definitely check your trigger warnings with this book. This is dark romance, okay? Killian Carson is morally black, our MMC, and there are some tropes that not everybody is going to love, especially in the first couple scenes of this book, okay? But it is dark romance, and it is just everything and more. Killian Carson, our MMC, he cannot feel regular emotions. He is not neurotypical. His brain's a little neurospicy. And so, yeah, he is just very demanding and very obsessive. And our FMC Glendon, she is very just lets everybody walk all over her. She doesn't really have a spine. She kind of just does what she's told and keeps her emotions inside. And what do you think happens when these two characters come together? Yeah, it's a lot of things happen, okay? But what I do love about Rina Kent and the way she writes her characters is there's always layers to these characters. So even though some of them can be a little extreme, and at first you're like, okay, Killian is like the villain, is he not? You get to know why Killian is the way he is. You get to know why Glendon is the way he is. And one thing I will always love about Miss Rina Kent is she will always deliver with two messed up characters coming together and making each other better. And that's all I'm going to say about that. The Legacy of God, it is in the Rinaverse, and the Rina girlies will get me. The Rinaverse girlies will come for my neck. They did in one of my Legacy of Gods videos when I was convincing you guys to read the Legacy of Gods. I started out with Legacy of Gods, okay? That was my first, like I said, Rina Kent book. I did not know that to start the Rinaverse, she has the Royal Elite series. She has the entire Rinaverse on her website. That is one of my goals, is to read the Rinaverse. However, I have started the Rinaverse, but I'm bouncing around, okay? And I do not think, I've said this before, but I do not think I would have been obsessed with Rina Kent's writing as much if I started with the very beginning of the Rinaverse. So Rina Kent herself said that you can read any of the Legacy of Gods books by themselves as standalones, but in my opinion, they go really, really good together. And the series just gets better and better. But the reason I picked God of Malice is because it is one of the best books to get you out of a book slump, and it's also the beginning of Legacy of Gods. So highly recommend. Morally Black MMC. FMC, he calls her Little Rabbit. Okay, yeah. Very smutty, very dark, and our MMC is morally black, and he helps Glendon. Like I said, I like the character development, but I like the spice and I like the shock factor of this book, and I think it's a really, really good recommendation for just ripping you out of a book slump, and you guys will know within the first couple chapters if God of Malice is for you or not. But I will say, read your trigger warnings. Your mental health is important, and just know that, you know, it's an extreme one. It's an extreme one, but again, it'll get you out of that book slump. I promise. Killian Carson, he was my first Rina Kent man. Not my favorite. I hate to say it. If you guys want to know what I think about the entire Legacy of Gods men, I have an entire video convincing you to read that series, and I rank all of them. But for book slump purposes, just start God of Malice. It'll rip you right out of the book slump, okay? The shock factor is there, and then you will just inhale the entire series. Even though it's a series, and usually when you're in a book slump, you're like trying to get out of it, you don't want to commit to a series. It's not a commitment situation, it's a obsession situation, okay? Just trust me on that. Trust me. The next book I highly recommend for getting out of a book slump is Inferno by Luna Mason. This is her first book in the Beneath the Blaze series. If you've watched any of my vlogs or any of my reading wrap-ups, you know how I feel about this book. Okay, so it's an Irish mafia romance, and it is super spicy, but there are these things called the decadence games. So it's where all of these women compete. They are submitted into this kind of like competition that's like a spicy competition, and I can't tell you much because it goes into the plot of the book, but just know there is like a spicy chocolate factory setting, and all of these women are competing to win money at this competition by doing some spicy things, and the winner gets, I believe it's $2 million, and becomes somebody's submissive, but in reality some things happen, so I can't really tell you, so you just have to read it for yourself. But just freaking know that going into this book, our FMC Charlotte, she is a bad. I am so obsessed with her. This is also kind of like an enemies to lovers. It starts out following Charlotte and her life, and then she meets Declan, who is our MMC, and both of these people are in the mafia, and I'm pretty much not gonna say anything else besides that. Irish mafia, chocolate factory setting, enemies to lovers, and yeah. Oh, I will say this, our MMC reads smut so that he can be better at servicing. Yeah, I'll say that. Okay, the twists and turns that Luna Mason delivers in this book is stunning. If you've read mafia romance, you know it's morally gray. You know what I mean? It's morally gray because it's like the things they're doing are questionable, but also, are they really the bad guys? Kind of a vibe. But just trust me on this one. This is fast-paced. This is enemies to lovers, Irish mafia, chocolate factory setting. It's just everything you need and more. Trust me on this. It is a good freaking time. And the next book's even better, but to get you out of a slump, just start with Inferno. Start with Inferno, and for me personally, I was hooked waiting for the next book. This is a continuing series. The next book, I believe, is coming out in November, maybe even before. But yeah, so obsessed. 10 out of 10 would recommend. The next book I recommend for getting out of a book slump is Kiss of the Basilisk by Lindsay Straube. Listen, you guys. Listen. It's exactly what it sounds like, okay? Our FMC Temperance, she is a chicken farmer. And first of all, I'm just going to start here because I've talked about this book before in my reading wrap-up, but she's a chicken farmer. Do not let that deter you because she also refers to herself as the chicken girl. So that's going to add a layer of humor to this book. This book had me cracking up. My wig was snatched. This book had me clutching my pearls. This book had me like, oh, right. It was spicy. The plot was plotting. The twists and turns had me. The ritual scene itself, when you guys read it, you'll know what I'm talking about, okay? Let me set the scene for you guys. Our girl Temperance, like I said, she's a chicken farmer. She refers to herself smelling like chicken all of the time. She lives in a kingdom, and in this kingdom, whenever the prince turns, I believe it's 21, they have a gathering of these women who enter this competition to win the prince's hand in marriage. Well, before they can compete kind of to win the prince's hand in marriage, they have to be trained. What do they have to be trained, you ask? They have to be trained in sexual acts. They sure do. Okay, so guess who trains trains them? The basilisks. You have to know the basilisks and the humans, they kind of have beef. Okay, they kind of have beef. There's some history there. I'm not going to get too much into that. But there is like that plot going on. Is this a lot of smut? Is it super unhinged? However, it's very interesting. It keeps you on your toes, and our basilisk shifter can shift parts of his body, so that's super interesting. But our girl Temperance, as she's being trained by her basilisk trainer, it's supposed to be just like, you know, keep it professional as you can when you're training someone to perform duties. She finds herself in a love triangle between her basilisk sex trainer and the prince, who she's trying to win his heart. So yeah, you got a love triangle, you got a little basilisk shifter, you got a hot prince, and there's lots of things that happen. I know you guys have seen this book all over TikTok, but just trust me when I tell you, you will not be able to put this book down, 1. But 2, it is very unhinged. And for me personally, it depends what I'm in the mood for. And I'm not like a monster romance girly, okay? I wouldn't even really call this monster, because if you read fantasy, it's like there's a lot of shifters, like Darius Acrux, Dragon Shifter. Ryder Draconis from the Ruthless Boys, he is a basilisk shifter. So this is not my first basilisk, okay? But this is the perfect getting out of a book slump book, in my opinion, because it made me laugh multiple times. It had me hooked from the very beginning, and it was so unhinged that it was just interesting to read. It was very, very creative and very different than any books I have read, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's smutty. Yeah, there were times where I was like, my mouth was literally falling open. Like I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. But in my opinion, that's what I'm looking for when I'm getting out of a book slump. And after this, I almost felt like after reading this book, it was just like a good reset and a good palate cleanser, because then I was like, okay, now I'm ready to use my brain. You know what I mean? I could turn my brain off while I read this book. So 10 out of 10 would recommend Kiss of the Basilisk by Lindsay Straube. It'll get you going. Our next book is Tempt Me by K.A. Tucker. This is the first book in the Wolf Hotel series. This is a part of a series. However, I will say the Wolf Hotel is such an underrated series, and it's one of those series that like you just inhale and consume. I have multiple reading vlogs while I'm reading this series, and I'm so freaking obsessed. I feel like it is a billionaire romance. It is experienced MMC, inexperienced FMC. Our FMC, Abby, she is from a small town, and she finds out her long-term boyfriend is cheating on her. And so she's like, dang, like I want to get a job, I want to get away, I want to move away out of my small town. And it sucks because her and her ex's families are really intertwined and in this small town, and like it's just been expected that they were going to get married and have babies, and then you kind of know how it is in a small town. So she's like, I need to get away for a little bit. So she interviews for these hotels. They're luxurious hotels called the Wolf Hotels. And she interviews, and she wants to be part of the outdoor crew. So she ends up getting accepted to work at the Wolf Hotel. And so she moves away. It's in Alaska, which is super far away from where she lives in her little small town. And she had only ever been with her ex-boyfriend. And she finds out real quick. She educates herself real quick. So she gets to kind of figure out not only what she wants in life, but what she wants in other departments, and she gets to explore, and she gets to live her life. And she meets her boss, Henry Wolf, one night, not knowing who he is, and ends up working in very close quarters with him. It's a really fun time. It is deeper than just a billionaire romance, and I will say it's one of those series that like it gets better and better and better and better, and it sucks you up immediately. You're rooting for her. You want her to move on from this crappy ex. And one thing about me, I will always love an experienced MMC who is going to teach her a few things. You know what I'm saying? There's also scenes with other characters in these books, and it's just a freaking good time. It is a very underrated series, and it is super, super bingeable, and yeah, it'll get you out of that book slump. 10 out of 10 would recommend. The next book is Till Summer Do Us Part by Meghan Quinn. This was a new one for me, and this is also a standalone, so this is not a part of a series. As many of you know, I hate summer, and I wanted to get like in the summer vibe, and I was also like in a weird little book slump, so I picked this one up off Kindle Unlimited, went in completely blind. Our FMC Scotty, she just got a new job, and she works with a bunch of Brads and Chads, as she calls them. All of the Brads and Chads are married, and they're always bonding with her boss about being married. One of them kind of calls her out and kind of like embarrasses her about not being married, and she interrupts him, and she's like, actually, I am married and I'm going through like a struggling time. She just lies. And then her boss pulls her aside and she's like, hey, my husband, he is a marriage counselor and he is the best of the best. I would like to personally invite you to his summer camp that he throws. All of the people at work go. So then she's like freaking out. She goes to her best friend and she's like, I need to find a husband. And he's like, oh my God, my brother does improv. He's a self-made millionaire who's retired. He would love to go with you. So she's like, okay, period. Like, what do I have to lose? So she reaches out to him and they make a plan to pretend to be married. What you have to know about our MMC Wilder is that he literally loves to live life on the edge. He likes to try new things, hence the improv. He's always down to clown. So during their trip to adult summer camp, pretending to be married, they encounter so many challenges that like these real couples are there to work on their marriage or reignite their flame or whatever. And watching them do it together and just improv the whole thing is so freaking funny because Wilder gets so into it and Scotty gets irritated with him and it's just freaking hilarious. And also, you know what happens? You know what happens with a little forced proximity and a little one bed trope? Things happen. Things get to going. And yeah, honestly, the thing I enjoyed most about this book is the humor in it. The spice was so good and the romance was so good, but I really, really loved the humor and I really, really loved watching both characters learn about each other, learn about their past trauma, and work through it with each other. I just loved it. And it literally had me cracking up. I started this at like 2 a.m. and I just freaking inhaled it. And I love Meghan Quinn's writing. It was my first book and only book I've ever read by Meghan Quinn. I will definitely be reading more of her books in the future, but this book, it got me out of a book funk. I wasn't really in a slump. I was just in a funky mood and I was not in the mood to read like crazy. You know what I mean? You know when you're in those moods. So yeah, this pulled me right out of it. And again, it's not a part of a series, so it is easy digestible. It is not super long and it's just a fun freaking time and I highly would recommend it. The next book that I highly recommend for getting out of a book slump is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is book 1 in her Chestnut Spring series, but listen you guys, if you've watched any of my reading vlogs, I have one where I read the entire Chestnut Spring series in a freaking week. Okay, so I had to add Flawless onto this list and the entire Chestnut Spring series, honestly, but we're gonna say Flawless because it is the first book in the series and that was my first cowboy romance ever. Ever. And if you know me, you know I'm not a yeehaw girly and it literally snatched me right out of my book funk. I was sucked in so fast, I didn't even know what happened. I just blacked out. But this follows our MMC, Rhett Eaton. He is a bull rider and he's having a little bit of a PR crisis. So his manager slash publicist sends in his daughter to try to contain him and help make him look like, you know, the golden boy again. Get a little PR crisis, so he's kind of looking like the bad guy. So it's gonna be forced proximity. It's gonna be only one bed trope. It's gonna be a little bit enemies to lovers, but she also had a childhood crush on him. And it's just so good. It's literally everything and more. Also Chestnut Springs, the setting, literally you fall in love with just as much as you do with the characters. I love the small town setting. They're on the road as well, but they do spend a little bit of time in Chestnut Springs and it's just you really, really fall in love with the setting. You fall in love with the found family. You fall in love with Rhett Eaton, who is this bad boy bull rider and he has an injury and she helps him with that and it's just feel good. It's spicy. The spice is there, but it's also so wholesome and just makes you feel warm inside and it's just a fun freaking time. It is so fun and I was so nervous to dive into a cowboy romance because I'm again, that's just not my forte IRL. So I was oh my God, I don't know. But it's literally so fun. Wear the hat, ride the cowboy. If you know, you know. I just highly would recommend trying it. If you're gonna start with a cowboy romance, I would start with Elsie Silver. I love her writing. I love her characters. It's just stunning and I cannot wait to continue and read more of her books because I'm so obsessed with her. But yeah, the entire Chestnut Spring series, gold. The next book is Chasing the Wild by Elliott Rose. This is the first book in the Crimson Ridge series. I have not continued the series. I am going to, but following the cowboy trend, this is ex-boyfriend's dad, but he's a cowboy. You got ex-boyfriend's dad because he's a cowboy, but again, similar to Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, you don't really necessarily feel bad dad because the ex-boyfriend sucks. So our FMC, she is in school to be a vet, and she is hunting down her ex-boyfriend because he kind of screwed her financially. So she goes up to this ranch where his last known like address is. It's called Devil's Peak, and she's like, it's getting ready to like storm. She basically gets stuck up there trying to take crap back to her ex-boyfriend and settle this situation with her ex. And long story short, she basically gets snowed in with her ex-boyfriend's dad, who's this broody, grumpy, damaged cowboy. And she's like freaking out because she's in school to be a vet, and she had this job lined up that was kind of like an apprenticeship so that she could become a vet. And so her ex-boyfriend's dad's like, listen, I live on this ranch, I need help with the animals, this could be your apprenticeship to help with school. So you got forced proximity, you got ex-boyfriend's dad, it's just forbidden, it's spicy, and it's just a good freaking time. It's a good time. It scratched that itch that Birthday Girl gave me. Like I said, Birthday Girl is still the top, but I 10 out of 10 would recommend this book. And Daddy Kate is it. Daddy Kate is it. I just love a little broody, grumpy cowboy, and I ate this book up. I was in such a weird little book funk, and this is just a good time. And again, one of those books that you can just turn your brain off, but you're also like, you're blushing. You know what I mean? 10 out of 10 would recommend this book. And again, the rest of the series, I cannot wait to read it because this one I ate up like that. The next book is Him by Sarina Bowen. This is an hockey romance. This is also friends to lovers. Oh my god, it's friends to lovers, but it's also has some yearning in there because one of our MMCs is secretly in love with his best friend. We've got forced proximity. We've got a love confession. We've got a bisexual awakening. It is everything, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's a feel-good, giggly, cutie, nothing truly bad happens kind of a romance. It's hockey, it's spicy, and like I said, the yearning in this book, watching these two characters find their way to each other was everything and more. I'm not usually a friends to lovers girly, but this one did it for me. This one really opened my mind up to friends to lovers, and I was just so obsessed with this. So yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend this one. The last book is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I know you guys have probably seen this one all over TikTok and probably think, this is basic. I've seen this one. What is so special about this book? I was in a book funk and I was actually painting my living room. I remember when I listened to this one. The audiobook is stunning, by the way. I have not read the physical book, but whenever I reread it, I will probably still listen to the audiobook again because the audiobook is so freaking good. It is dual POV. It is bad boy, good girl. It is hockey player and figure skater. Anastasia, she is training to be an Olympic athlete, and Nate, he is a hockey player. So something ends up happening to one of these skating rinks. So the hockey team and the figure skaters have to share the rinks. And so Stassi, I cannot remember like how to say her name because it's been a minute since I've listened to this book, but kind of like a hate to love situation, and she thinks he's just this playboy hockey player, and so it's a little enemies to lovers, but it's more like she's frustrated and he's trying to be a nice guy and get her to like think he's not a piece of crap. It's just so much fun. It is bad boy and good girl kind of vibe because he's kind of like a playboy, but he's also a nice guy, so you like can't help but love him. And it is just, the tension is there. It's spicy, but it's also feel good. Nothing super crazy happens. And yeah, it's just a good freaking time, and it'll get you out of your book slump. Promise. That is all of my book recs for Getting Out of a Book Slump, Spicy Edition. All of these books were just such a fun time, and I could literally turn my brain off and just enjoy and actually just get back on track to reading, because it sucks when you're in like a book slump slash funk and you're just not in the mood to freaking read, but it's like you want to. These are the best books for pulling you out, getting you back on track. And honestly, all of these books actually got me sucked up into their series, and then like before I knew it, I was like, how did I read like all of these books? Just because like The Wolf Hotel and Legacy of Gods, like it just sucked me up real quick. But yeah, I highly recommend all of these books, and when in doubt, if you're in a book slump, you need something spicy, babe. You need something spicy. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!